Howdy folks, this is Big Sam. Welcome back to another cool and exciting episode of Mosin Markings. Now today's going to be really neat because this is our first Mosin marking video related to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Now there's quite a lot to unpack here, and you might be wondering what exactly it is we're looking at right now. We have a lot of cool stuff going on here. We'll get to the barrel markings a little bit later because the focus of this video isn't on them, but I'll mention them in passing. The real focus here today are going to be these three letters down here, AZF. And as you can see, it's not always perfectly stamped, but that's what we have here. Now, you may have seen this or heard of this marking before. It's pretty famous because it's a lot of collectors really like to find it, and it's not that common. So what does this mean? Well, simply put, if you see the letters AZF on a Mosin, that means it was captured by the Austro-Hungarian Empire during World War I. Okay, now, who exactly put this marking on the gun? That's going to be the main topic here on the video. So let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit, and then we can talk a little bit more about this here. All right, we'll get this guy into focus a little bit more. All right, so again, typically this marking, you're always going to find it on the receiver itself in the upper portion close to the barrel up here. So right about in this area, usually with the letters facing up towards the barrel, just like this. Now, this marking was put here by a particular place, and it's going to be, well, it has a lot of names, but it's basically what we're going to be calling today the Artillery Arsenal of Vienna. Now, these letters stand for Artillerie Zugfabrik, A, Artillerie Z Zug's F Fabrik. And really what this boils down to is this was a massive facility within Vienna, and its roots really go back to just after the Hungarian Revolution, which we've talked about a few times here on the channel, but back into around the 1850s, this was a massive complex in Vienna, and they did a lot of stuff there. One of the big things they did was produce artillery, so cannons, siege mortars, those kinds of things, just big guns in large quantities. I'll go ahead and put up a picture now so you can see exactly what it is we're taking a look at. But this was a really impressive facility, and it does make sense. You can actually see there in the picture, you can see there's some train tracks. Makes a lot of sense, and we'll talk a little bit more about train tracks here in a little bit. Now, if we fast forward to World War I, just before World War I started, I mean, again, this was an important facility. They had a lot of artillery production as well as some other things there. And they had several thousand employees at this particular facility, the arsenal in Vienna. However, World War I would turn things up to 11 because, as y'all know, World War I was a war of attrition. And one of the big important things about a war of attrition is that you need to be able to get weapons to and from the front as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you run the risk of just getting overrun by your opponent, hence the war of attrition. So, really what they needed, the Austro-Hungarian Empire needed, was a facility to basically facilitate the coming and going of artillery rapidly. So they would end up really ramping up the production, but they didn't just do artillery because, folks, we're talking about Mosins today, not artillery. They really started to go above and beyond and do a lot of crazy stuff there. It ended up being that during World War I, they would expand to have 20,000 employees and at least 18 different production facilities within the massive complex, which is known as the Vienna Arsenal. So this was a massive, massive operation, and they were doing everything you could imagine there. So during World War I, they weren't just repairing and developing and assembling artillery. They were actually building guns as well as modifying guns and repairing guns. And that's probably what we have here. Now, not even close, really, to every Austro-Hungarian Mosin has the AZF marking. And you might ask why. Well, chances are if a Mosin has the AZF marking, that means, one, obviously it was captured by the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but two, it was specifically put on a train and sent to Vienna, to the Vienna artillery arsenal, to be repaired in some way. They were, getting tens of thousands of these Mosin Nagants, and a lot of them had damage. Maybe the stock got blown up, or somebody actually shot the gun. Maybe there was a big bullet hole through the magazine. Just all sorts of stuff. Maybe the sight got destroyed. Who knows? But you had a lot of these guns by the thousands that needed some kind of repairs. And what they did was basically just put these guns, load them on trains, and ship them back to the artillery arsenal, where one of the 18 previously mentioned factories would take these guns and do whatever they needed done to them, whether it was replace sights, re-sight them in, put new stocks on them, get new barrel bands, just anything you could possibly imagine. They probably were capable and did do here at AZF, at the Artillerie Zugsfabrik. Again, the Artillerie Zugsfabrik is really going to be referring to just one of those specific factories within the Vienna arsenal, because remember, there's 18 different ones within this massive complex. But this is a really neat marking. Now, typically, and really, typically isn't even a fair term, honestly. Pretty much always, whenever you see the letters AZF on a Mosin, it's going to be on a Finnish Mosin. Why? That is a good question. And in fact, as some of y'all more astute viewers may have noticed, this actually is a Finnish Mosin. This particular one is a P28, which has a Salerno sleeve, which, well, we're not going to be talking about this today. We've already done a whole hour-long video on this gun, so go check that out. But anyway, after the war, we had the whole Treaty of Versailles, among other things. So, coupled with the fact that Finland was really trying to consolidate their the diversity, a somewhat limited diversity, but they were really trying to consolidate the diversity of their weapons to just the Mosin Nagant. They ended up pretty much purchasing all of the remaining ones that the Austro-Hungarian, well, I guess it was really Austria at that point in time, in the 1920s, had left over after the war. And a lot of these guns were actually converted into a different caliber, the 8x50 rimmed Austrian cartridge. And so Finland would end up buying pretty much all of the guns that they still had. And so a lot of the guns that remained by the end of the war in the Austro-Hungarian hands would then end up in Finland's hands in the 1920s and 1930s. Now, Finland would then go and, a lot of these guns ended up getting rebarreled. That's why it's actually really common when you have a gun with the letters AZF. It's not common to have a gun with these letters, but when you have a gun with these letters, it's common for that gun to have a new barrel. And in this case, that's kind of what happened. The Salerno sleeves are a little bit weird because a lot of these may not have actually been new barrels themselves. This might be an original Russian barrel that they just deface all the markings, restamp the markings, and then re-sleeve. We don't quite know. That's probably what happened in this case, though. But either way, typically these guys don't have the original barrels. When you do find an Austro-Hungarian Mosin in Finnish hands with the original barrel, it's actually quite interesting. So again, this is not a very common marking to see. However, when we start really delving deep into the world of Austro-Hungarian Mosins and their markings, the AZF is probably going to be the most common, as well as the most well-known marking out of the whole kit and caboodle of them. We are going to be taking a look at some more much rarer, really interesting markings, as well as rifles, but I wanted to start out with the AZF marking because I think people are probably just most likely to be more familiar with this one, and it gives us, I think, a good place to start. So if you have a Mosin with this marking, it's a very cool piece of history. And another interesting tidbit is a lot of the receivers that bear the AZF marking tend to be antiques. Not all of them, but if it has this marking, it has a better chance of being an antique than it not having this marking. Not all of these are antiques, but I've definitely seen some that are. So if you have a gun with this marking on it, go ahead and take a look at it. And it's cool because sometimes you can even find these Austro-Hungarian markings still preserved on the receivers of much later Finnish Mosins, even the Finnish M39s. And some of those can even be antique receivers as well. So when you have something like that, that's just a really quirky and interesting gun. There's just a lot of history going on here. So I hope you guys enjoyed taking a look at this really cool marking. If you guys have any questions or you want to look at some more pictures or you're just interested in learning more about the Austro-Hungarian Empire, you guys can send us an email or you can go check out our website at mosinmuseum.com. I've been working really hard to get as much content as I can regarding the Austro-Hungarian Empire on that website because that's really what we're going to be talking about here on the channel for the next bit. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another Mosin Markings episode. Let me know if you guys have any prayer requests, and we'll see you next time.